Since the dawn of time, man has been curious. And for almost as long, the Vibes Broadcast Network has sought the truth. Investigate, discuss, explore. Okay, maybe in other episodes, but this one is just listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have here Mr. Jeremy Nunes. We're going to learn a little bit about him and about his comedy and just have a great conversation. So, Jeremy, just tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, Kyle. So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, I've been doing comedy. This is my 20th year in the comedy business. I have a wife of 9 years and two kids, 7 and 3, and travel the country doing comedy. People tell me, or people ask all the time, what's the best part about doing comedy? I would say not being around my family.
Well, I guess that goes to show, huh? How funny. So where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in a small town called Dawson, right outside of Springfield, Illinois, one of the suburbs, if you will. And, one of those towns small enough where if you're causing havoc on one side of the town, your mom knew about it before you got back home,
Ah, yes.
So,
kind of town I grew up in.
yeah. She'd be like, what? Why did you shoot buckshot through the stop sign? I'm like, how'd you know?
I remember as a kid that our neighbors actually were allowed to whoop us. And then when they told our parents, we got it twice as much when we got home.
Kid, I don't feel like kids are spanked enough these days, man. You get the timeouts more than anything. When I was a kid, timeout was like, timeout, Dad, I think you hurt my arm.
My timeout was when I got knocked onto the ground and then I woke up a little bit later.
That's right. Yeah.
Different times, beautiful times.
Mm-hmm.
But so I understand that you were mayor of your small town at one time.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little story, Kyle. And this story has made its round, so I apologize if you've heard it before. But so I thought it'd be funny if I got my name on the ballot just as a joke. So I got my name on the ballot as comedian Jeremy Nunes, and I distributed these campaign flyers with my slogan, "Put a real joker in office." Because then I thought, well, who is going to vote for that kind of person? 80% of the town.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah. So, end up having to get sworn in, and I actually hadn't thought about this. I guess I'm sure we'll get to it. But as you can see behind me, I wrote a book about my time as mayor. And when you have your book, they have what's called I think it's a content editor. And what they do is go through and make sure the person you call Joe is Joe all the way through. He doesn't switch to John or something. And they make sure you've tied up the loose ends when you say, like, this thing is going to happen tomorrow. Then when tomorrow comes in the book, you actually explain it, right? So she catches something, said, I am describing the night I'm sworn in. They say there's my mom is there, my wife is there, my sister is there. And the lady says, you don't say your dad is there. We need to clarify why. She's like, does he live far away? Did he pass away? And I was like, oh, my dad didn't come watch me be sworn in because he voted for the incumbent.
Oh my God. I mean, what was that like? I mean, did you honestly didn't expect to get in, and then you come in and you have to take it seriously when you get into office. So, I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I did take it seriously. Some people that follow me know I won an award for being one of Illinois' most ethical mayors. And that was because I actually issued a fine to my parents. So my dad called me when he found out. He's like, Jeremy, why did I get this fine in the mail? And I was like, well, your grass is way too high. You have to mow your grass. He goes, Jeremy, you mow our grass. I said, well, you should have called me sooner. I was like, man, now you owe the town $300 and you owe me $50 for mowing your grass. So, but, yeah, and he's like, I'm never voting for you again. And I was like, well, get in line. So, but yeah, man, it was a tough job. I had to, take it pretty seriously. The part, I do say is difficult is, as a small town mayor, you've got your employees that do the work. So you got to keep them happy. Then you've got your town board, 6-member board. And if you don't keep them happy, they're not going to approve anything you're trying to get done. And then you got to keep the people happy of the town, because if they're not happy, they're not going to reelect you in the first place. And I was taking it seriously enough. I did want to get reelected. So everything together, you got to find this sort of fine line where everything overlaps and everyone is happy. Yeah, it was quite the unique circumstances for sure.
I didn't understand politics and stuff. You think that it's, this guy's going to get into office and he's just going to, everything he said he's going to do and whatnot. But I actually worked for a couple of different cities here in Texas, and to understand how that system works, people don't realize how difficult it is, especially if you really intend on keeping promises and then you find out, maybe this ain't as easy as I thought it was.
Yeah, I actually even had a guy I went to high school with. We had somebody on the board resign, so my old buddy from high school, I talked him into taking that spot. And boy, after a handful of months, he's like, wow, I had no idea how much actually went into running a small town. And I was like, yeah, and he's not even the one getting the angry neighbor phone calls. Mm-hmm. You get the people mad. I had one guy call. He's like, my neighbor throws dog crap in my yard every day. And I was like, what? So I called the guy, and he's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, why? He's like, well, his dog comes into my yard, does his business. I scoop it and throw it back.
Yeah, you didn't get the other side of the story. How funny. Well, and people talk about the waste of spending and things like that, and they don't understand that if you don't spend the money, then that means the next budget it gets cut out. So yeah, you do spend a lot of money on stupid things, but I will say my guys got some pretty good tools from time to time, because I'd have to go spend the budget.
When I was making my way through college, I worked for this little family-owned shop that was half sporting goods and half hardware. And the hardware store worked for a lot of, the hardware store catered to a lot of customers that were government-funded construction companies. And boy, the fiscal year would go up to July 1. So that last week of June, they're always hammered with guys coming in, just loading up on every bit of equipment they could, because they knew, like you said, if they didn't spend that money, it was going to get shifted somewhere else.
That's right.
Now you would think the government would pick up on this at some point when June was the highest spending month of the entire year. But you got people like me running stuff. You're not going to catch that.
All right. Well, let's get into your comedy. Okay. And because I have some friends that are in the comedy business, and I mean, they've had it rough the last couple of years. You're trying to keep working, but you've got a lot of things shut down, and some of them have gone to doing a lot of virtual events. And I mean, even as far as doing virtual events for companies and stuff to help with whatever they're trying to do. I mean, what have you done to keep busy the last couple of years?
So, man, I will tell you, it's kind of amazing how it all started. I remember March 2020, I was scheduled to perform at this ballroom the first weekend of March up in Wisconsin, and we were sold out. And then as the week went on, the lady that ran that showroom kept calling me. Oh, we just had some people drop out. Oh, we just had some more people drop out. And it seated just shy of 300 people. And then when I get there, I think we had 8. And I was like, what happened? We sold this out. And then I remember talking to people from the stage as I'm performing. I was like, do you think this is because of that COVID thing they're talking about? Like, at the time we had no idea what exactly it was. It was just this thing that might be coming, and and so yeah, my wife wasn't happy. I got $1 for every ticket sold. But so yes, that was the last show I did before everything shut down. And I think we went several months without actually being able to do a show. And then kind of got to the point in the summer where I don't know how it was for you in Texas, Kyle, but in Illinois, everybody was locked down and people were kind of tired of being locked down and felt that they should be able to be free and do what they wanted. So I had to coordinate some what we called the Speakeasy Comedy Tour, where we're doing secret comedy shows in these bars throughout the Midwest. So that's kind of how I first started making a little money back. And then after that, a little bit of a show here and there. And then, as you mentioned, suddenly the online shows started becoming a thing. I never wanted to do the online shows through the Skypes and, that sort of thing. But I mean, you really didn't have much of a choice. It was that or not get paid,
Yeah.
And those are weird unto themselves, because you deliver the joke and then you don't hear anything. And you're like, oh, they didn't like it. And then like 3 seconds later, now the jokes trickle back through, because it takes a little bit, so I'll have these moments where I'm like, oh, I thought they would have loved that joke. Oh, there we go. Yeah, they did. Okay. So, so the Skype stuff, then I was writing jokes for some other comedians. So I was getting paid, the guys that were big enough names that they can actually still do some stuff. So I was kind of doing some writing for them. And then now it's really started to turn back around. I actually just did a show last weekend. I was in a theater, 410 seat theater, and we sold about 400 seats. So it does feel like maybe things have finally turned the corner here. And I sure hope so. I've been eating government peanut butter for 2 years.
Well, for the most part, for a good long time, things were locked down here in Texas. And then our governor finally is like, you know what? Hey, enough of this. Don't have to wear a mask if you don't want to. And of course, you still have those people, or they run their businesses and say, well, you're still going to wear a mask when you come in here. And even when you go to the hospitals, most of the nurses are there even going, I don't know why we're wearing a mask. But if I go somewhere and they tell me, oh yeah, you have to wear a mask to come in my place, I'm like, no, thank you. See you later. Bye. Enough's enough. We're going to live with this garbage for the rest of our lives. Live with it like you do the flu is what I say, but I'm not an expert.
Yeah. People run those shops and say, well, I have the right to decide whether or not to mandate you wearing a mask in here. You're right. You do. Right. And I have the right to go somewhere else to do my shopping.
That's right.
So, well, and I don't know if you are aware, I actually had a pretty nasty bout with COVID, just about died about 3 months ago. That was in the hospital. I was in the ICU. I was on the ventilator.
Oh, no.
Man, they gave me 30% chance to live. And luckily, by the grace of God, powered through and was healed up and made it out. But so you may notice my voice kind of comes in and out a little bit still. That's because that tube really did some damage in there.
Oh, no.
But, yeah. It was a pretty unique experience. I don't know, some folks will know, but they put like sort of it's like an IV, but a medical person will tell you when they hook something up in here, it's not an IV, but whatever it is, sort of like an IV, they hook it up here. And when you're finally done, they take that thing out of there and it leaves sort of a reddish purple mark kind of on the side of your neck there. So this tube causes this mark, or at least that's where I told my wife it came from.
Ba-dum-bum. And how many people that went?
Yeah.
No, seriously, man, we got it when it first started, and they didn't know what it was, and that was the sickest I ever been in my life. For a week, couldn't get out of bed, and second time caught it, I think like 2 or 3 days, it was over and done with, and it was like having a bad cold.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how you see it hits a lot of people hard that first time, and then after that, I guess the antibodies or whatever, are able to kind of minimize it a little bit for you. But yeah, it was no joke, man. They I passed out, I think 3 separate times, and they had me, if they're finally going to put the tube in me, gave me a 30% chance to live, and told me, I had to FaceTime my wife. They're not even going to let you have family in there when all this goes down. So I had to FaceTime my wife, and we said our goodbyes. They said, say goodbye like it might be the last time, because you don't know. And it was pretty crazy. And when, like I said, by the grace of God, I got out of there. When I got home, I still had to rest. I was still wiped out, but I noticed on our pillowcases, they had all this like eyeliner smears on the pillow. And I asked my wife what it was. And she's like, well, it's like, I cried on that pillow every single night until you got home. And I was like, wow. I mean, when I got home, I cried because I knew I was going to have to eat your sloppy Joe again.
I gotta ask you something else about your comedy. As I know we talked before we got started. You go to church, and I commend that, because not a lot of people talk about that. Seems like nowadays. Do you keep your comedy pretty clean?
Yeah, very clean show. I don't even swear in my show. And generally, for if I go to a place where I don't think very many people have actually heard of me, we don't advertise it's a clean show, because your typical comedy fans often aren't interested in watching a guy who advertises himself as clean, because they think it's just not going to be funny. So it's much better to have the comedy people come, they watch the show, they have a great time, and then when they leave, they're like, well, you know what? I don't even think that guy swore one time. And so that's kind of how it's gone for me. And like I said, I've been doing it 20 years. It's been going well. And, I mean, some people may question it, but I've got, my Amazon Prime special, Dry Bar special, best-selling book. So it's working out, obviously.
Hey, I actually look for comedians that are a little bit cleaner. Of course, I grew up with George Carlin and Richard Pryor, and then of course Eddie Murphy, and they just be a little filthy at times, but and I guess it has its place. But being that I'm a father and a grandfather, I like to find something that's a little cleaner that I might be able to enjoy with the kids. I mean, even though some of the comedy still goes over their heads, but I think it's important that we have more comedians like that.
Yeah, well, thanks. You made me think of kind of a story about how this all comes full circle here. So I mentioned my Amazon Prime special. And if you go to Amazon Prime and look it up, you go to the reviews, you'll see a ton of people give it these 5-star reviews. And a lot of their comments are, it was so great to be able to watch a comedy show and not worry that my kids were in the room. Okay. And so what I tell people, the topics I talk about are adult topics. I talk about being a parent or being married, or my time as mayor. It's not anything that relates to kids, but it's all clean enough that the kids can be in the room and it's not going to impact anything. Right. So I'm going to connect all this stuff together for you, Kyle. So a lot of people asked me if I knew how I got COVID. And I wasn't around anyone that I know had it. But I was doing this show in the middle of Missouri, this bar show. I had this heckler who I really tore up. I tore him up pretty good. And so he gets mad and he's deciding he's going to storm off. And he keeps asking what my name is. He's like, I'll find him. And then I make fun of him a little bit more. And then he's like, I'll kill you. And so my theory is that this guy knowingly had COVID, found my car because it was the only one with Illinois plates, and just coughed all over my door handle. Now, I'll tell you, I knew his name was Adam because of my interactions with him. So what does this guy do? But he goes home, he gets on Amazon, goes straight to my Amazon Prime special, gives a 1-star review, and comments on the bottom of it something about, this is the worst comedian I've ever seen. I'd rather hear grinding teeth, something like that. So if you look, I'm telling the truth. You'll see a guy named Adam did exactly that. But he actually helped me. And I'll tell you why. Because at the time, I had 29 reviews. If you get 30 Amazon reviews and the average is 4.5 stars or better, Amazon starts recommending you. So I had only 5-star reviews. I had 29 5-star reviews. He puts the 1 star. It pushes me through to be recommended to everyone. So I've actually made a decent amount of money thanks to my heckler, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. If you're out there, we appreciate you. That's got to be kind of a good feeling, though. You have something going on Amazon, and as I told you before we started, I've watched dry bar comedy on YouTube, and quite honestly, I spend more time watching YouTube than I do any other television. I mean, that's another feeling. I would love to know how that feels to be that. I don't know. I guess you'd say pretty famous if you got a recommended show on Amazon. I don't even get it recognized on YouTube. So,
we got a local pizza shop here that run by a couple folks straight from Italy, and I was showing them I was on Mike Huckabee's show, and I did stand up on his show, and I'm showing them the video on my phone, and they can't say my last name. They say Nuna, and so you're watching it, and they go, "Oh, Nuna famosa," and I was like, "Yeah, I guess that means I'm famous." But now how it's interesting how the Amazon special works, because unless you're a huge name, you have to fund that entire special yourself, and then hope that you find a platform such as an Amazon to actually purchase the rights to it and make your money back eventually. So it was definitely quite the risk for us to take, and it's pretty interesting. Crown Entertainment is the company that signed up and locked in the distribution for it. And I remember, of all things, I was mowing the grass and I could feel my phone buzzing in my pocket, and I answered the phone, and he said, your special is Who's With Me? Well, Crown Entertainment is with you. We've signed on. We've got it with Amazon. And I was like, awesome. I got to get back to weed eating. But Dad,
you owe me $50.
But yeah, so it's on there, and then that was a big deal. That was I remember that night. It was a rocking night. The audience was fantastic, and and same with the dry bar comedy special. I was probably the most nervous I've ever been was for that one, just because if I knew. Even if when I filmed my special, I knew if the best I did was okay, I was still going to do my best to get it out there, versus the dry bar special, you're in their hands. So if they don't think you're funny, it's not going anywhere. So I was really nervous about that one, but of course it came through as well. And if they filmed that out of Provo, Utah, actually, of all places. And it was a lot of fun, man. They helped me out. And actually, for either, whether it's the dry bar special or the Amazon special, if you look it up, I get about $1 every time somebody watches it. So if you could just hit refresh on your screen several times, that would really.
I'm going to do that just for you. And don't forget me when you come to Texas. You owe me a soda water then. So
sure thing.
I paid for that because I refreshed. So I'm assuming you go to gatherings, parties, that kind of thing. When people there find out that you're a comedian, do they ask you to perform for the party?
They don't ask me to perform for the party, but they always say, "Hey, tell me a joke."
Of course.
And then and then you're always like, "Well, stand-up comedy doesn't really work that way. You don't do knock jokes or something." I mean, generally you're telling stories or observations or something, but I always keep a handful in my back pocket just for that specific reason, So Kyle, if you want one, say
sure.
Why did little Johnny drop his ice cream cone?
Why?
Because he got hit by a bus.
Oh, no. That's like one of those why did the dead baby cross the road? Because he was stapled to the chicken.
Oh boy.
I don't know. I just wonder, because sometimes I'll have people come on that they're a magician or they're a comedian, something like that, and I said it's got to be difficult sometimes just to go enjoy a party because it's they want you to perform for them, and they're like, yeah, sometimes I just want to go and have a good time, but for me, I've got quite a bit of collection of dad jokes, so you don't want to get me started telling jokes at a party.
And every once in a while I'll have people on my TikTok, especially with at comedian Jeremy Nunes. People on my TikTok, every once in a while someone will comment, "Great dad joke," and I'm like, "Whoa." I'm like, is that a compliment? I don't know. Is
to me,
good?
That's a compliment.
Okay. So I was like, well, I'll take it then, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, my kids especially, they hate the dad jokes, or at least they tell me they do. I think secretly they go and they laugh. They just don't want dad to know. You gonna embarrass your kids like that when they get older?
I think I already do, and my wife as well. She'll even, I'll tell her, even if I'll start talking, I'll go, "Hey, did you hear about this?" And she'll go, "Is this a joke?" And I'm like, "No, really." I wish I could think of one at the moment, but and I'll say something and she'll just look, "Really?" And I'm like, "I thought it was fantastic." I can't ever judge her sense of humor. I actually had this idea for a like sort of a funny video to do, and she thought it was the dumbest thing ever, and it ended up getting like 4 million views because everybody thought it was so funny. But do you remember, this would have been maybe 5 years ago or so, it was really trendy. Everybody's doing the ice bucket challenge where they dump the ice over their head.
Yes, I do remember that.
So you had that going on. Now, about the same time, a lot of people were mad at Starbucks because their cups no longer said Merry Christmas. I think they switched it to Happy Holidays, so they just took it off altogether, something like that. So I made this video that said, we're going to protest Starbucks, we're doing the Star Bucket Challenge, and you have to dump Starbucks over your head.
Oh, no.
So I buy this thing of, Starbucks coffee, and of course I let it cool off, but I don't let the audience know that. But so I've got the Starbucks and I just dump it over my head. I'm like, "Oh, why did it? And my wife thought it was the stupidest idea. And like I said, 4 million views. I can't remember. I think it might have been taken down by now, but it blew up significantly. And so anytime now she's like, "That's not funny." I'm like, "I don't even believe you. Remember the Star Bucket Challenge?"
I saw I guess you call it a meme, but somebody had went to a Starbucks, ordered a coffee, and then left. And you know what the name was on the cup that he left up on the counter? It said Bueller on it. And I'm like, I wonder how many people caught that, but can you imagine how many people in there that did catch the joke when the what do you call them? Whoever serves
barista.
It. Yeah, barista is like going, Bueller. Most expensive joke that you weren't even there to catch.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid one. That is a great idea for sure.
Now, I'll tell you, things are pretty sad when my 2-year-old grandson, I will try to do some kind of joke with him, and he starts going, "No, Papa, no."
I had that, I mentioned that big theater I did the show at. Man, I was just absolutely crushing. And I thought, oh, now's the time. I had an idea to do a joke, which is a callback. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's sort of like repeating a punchline from earlier in the show, and people laugh all the more because they're like, "Oh, that was from before." And I was like, "Oh, I can weave in a callback right here." So I'm just crushing and crushing. And then I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do that." And then I'm like, and then it's just silence. And then this guy in the second row goes, "No."
Some comedians seem to keep comedy going, and then there's some, I worry for the future. But I'm one of those, I do like to observe. If you had done that and I'd have been there, I might have been the only one laughing, but I would have caught it.
Yeah. Well, comedy in the future, that's kind of interesting you bring that up. It's as much as everyone says, oh, the cancel culture stuff and well, you can't really say that anymore sort of stuff. They keep, the window for comedy used to be this, and then they're like just bringing in more and more and more and more. And now all your jokes have to fit through this little tiny little spectrum. And the problem is they're making everyone just bring everything back so much that it's really limiting comedy. Comedians used to sort of be the champions for the First Amendment. We were the absolute truth tellers, the absolute, and think about George Carlin. You'd mentioned you're a fan of him, and just how much he just pointed out, politics and societal, flaws and whatnot that he would always point out. Now, boy, you speak out, they don't like that, and then the mob comes after you, so you keep having to just pull back further and further. There's a meme that makes its way around the internet every once in a while, and it's like a cartoon of like a father and son walking through a museum, and there's a booth of a guy clearly doing stand-up, and it said, "Here, son, that's a comedian. They used to be funny, but they went extinct after everyone started getting offended."
Like,
yeah.
Hey, we were talking about this the other day. I know you remember Lenny Bruce. That guy literally went to jail so he could pave the way for other comedians to come out and be able to just cuss on stage, because he would literally go to jail just for cursing on stage. And they were, advocating for, to be able to say whatever you want. And now I see actual comedians, actors, other people coming out and trying to limit what you can say. I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. We fought so hard. I still remember as a kid, people fighting against labels, and now people want to be labeled. I don't understand. It blows my mind. What's happened to us?
I really think about that with Lenny Bruce, as you mentioned that, man. Just a guy who he was, as I say, that comedians are the champions for the First Amendment. He was the champion for the comedians. I mean, he was the first. And like he said, no doubt went to jail numerous times. His mugshots are out there because he swore. I think he called somebody a schmuck, and that got him arrested one time. And it's just amazing to me how many comedians nowadays take the side of the cancel culture and say, yes, it's your job as a comedian to be better. So that tight window I talked about, they say it's your job as a comedian to fit in a tight window, the best possible jokes possible. And I'm like, when we all started this, Lenny Bruce fought for everyone, and everyone followed in tow that we could do anything we wanted and there'd be an audience for it. And if you don't like what a comedian's saying, you don't have to go. If you're in there and he shocks you, walk out. But to just try to end careers for guys, it just makes no sense to me. I mean, Dave Chappelle was the latest. They tried to cancel Dave, who widely regarded as, in my opinion, the best comedian working today. Everyone would agree, one of the best. And they go after him for stuff that he didn't even say. And even it's willing. I'll sit down and have a conversation with you. But if you do, you have to watch my special first, because you need to know what I said. And they wouldn't take him up on it because they don't want to have a face-to-face conversation. So, but Dave proved as a comedian, you just keep going. If they try to cancel you, okay, I'll just keep doing shows elsewhere. There's always going to be venues that do take your side and are willing to host you, and you can still make your money that way. But like you said, it's just stunning to me the amount of people. There are more comedians now than ever because the structure of comedy has changed a bit. So in the comedy boom of the 80s, it was just comedy clubs everywhere. Then things sank in the 90s. And from sort of the late 90s to probably 2010-ish, so for that 10 to 15 year period, comedy was sort of became the comedy club instead of a Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then there were these sort of bar night comedies where the bars would tag comedians on the route. So like where I'm from, say, for example, you could do club in St. Louis, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you would do a bar show 2 hours up the road, say in Springfield, Illinois, on that Wednesday. That's how it sort of has worked for those 10, 15 years. Now it's really transitioned where there's not a whole lot of comedy clubs, period, anymore. They've since shrunk, but there's bar night comedy all over the place. It's really exploded. But the problem is there's such a explosion of all these people that call themselves comedians, and I'm going to say it that way. They call themselves comedians. They do 2 or 3 shows a year, and they're the people that are performing for these audiences. So I do think we get a lot of watered down comedy, and again, the watered down comedy and comedians, like I said, not willing to stand up for what we as comedians are supposed to stand for in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's amazing to me is sometimes I'll run across a comedian and their whole bit is just cuss word after cuss word. And that's all it is. There's no real comedy to it. It's just they're getting up and they're cussing. But and then you have those that kind of fall short. I'm sorry. I mean, the comedians that I grew up with, I don't know, they were just a lot better to me. I'm not saying there's not some good ones out today. There are some. I enjoy Dave Chappelle. I enjoy Kevin Hart and a few others. And then there's some that's just like they're activists more than they're comedians, and I don't get it. I told you I don't really like to get into politics per se on my shows because unfortunately, no matter what side you pick, you're going to isolate half of your audience. I mean, if you put me in a corner, I'm going to tell you how I feel. But there was a time where I didn't have to agree with that guy on stage, and I still enjoyed his comedy. I might not like his politics, but I enjoyed his comedy. Now it's like everybody wants you to pick a side, and I don't like that.
And that's one of the things that I find unusual now about so late night comedy is that it's largely become a political, just political discussion. This is comedy anymore.
It's not even a discussion.
It's more political rants. Yeah, and they just do their rants. They wait for the applause because they did a political rant. And then I've started to wonder, well, if that's what it is, why do they even need a comedian to host that show anymore if no one's even attempting to be funny? I mean, you could get, any political commentator of the day to host those shows. So that's part that does feel a little odd to me. Like I totally understand like what you said there. You're splitting the room if you go political, you're going to lose roughly half the audience. Totally understand. And like you said too, I got tons of friends that on the opposite side of the political spectrum as me, and I think they're fantastic and hilarious. No problem whatsoever. But many of them just stop talking to me. They're not friends anymore. They don't want to be friends because they know the side I stand for, and because I look at things differently, that means I have chosen a side, and they're no longer willing to be friends. So that's what's odd to me. Like you said, we used to have our differences, but we could still come together and enjoy our time. But it's changed quite a bit for sure.
Man, that I can say I remembered when Saturday Night Live was funny.
That's what I heard talking to my wife about that. I can remember the moment I stopped watching was Trump was about to be sworn in or had just been sworn in, and they did this thing. It wasn't even a sketch. It was just a couple of the people like singing a song about how they miss Obama and wish he would come back. And there was no attempt at comedy whatsoever. And, and I always said, hey, if you want to make jokes about it, I'll watch. But I mean, I was like, what? This wasn't even an attempt at comedy. It wasn't like they tried to be funny and it didn't work. they were just doing political discussion. And I was like, I don't, but again, now, if you try to do comedy and flip it around, that's when the cancel culture comes right after you. So, and I won't back down. I've had a lot of people, like I said, man, you're losing friends because you won't back down. And I say, if people don't want to be friends with me because of my political views, you were never a friend in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's my view. So if you're curious about my political stuff, you can check out my TikTok at comedian Jeremy Nunes. I do tons of political stuff on there. And the TikTok people don't like it too much, if that gives you any hint of where I'm at. They they shut down a lot of my videos, Kyle, I'm telling you. But
hey, my Facebook page that I'd had, gosh, for almost 30 years, pretty close. Gone. Just gone.
They just shut it down, huh?
They got rid of it completely. I did everything I could to try to get it to come back up, and they did away with it. And the funny thing is that I had put up an anti-Nazi post, anti-Nazi, mind you. And because it had the word Nazi in it, that's why they said they took it down.
They took the whole
thing down.
Yeah.
And
they didn't take your post down. They shut down the whole account.
A whole account.
I got to be careful. I just did this one.
I don't know, man. Free speech, all that stuff. I never thought we'd have to fight for that again, but apparently we do.
We are reverting, like you said, between the speech and the you can't say that, and then the like you mentioned a minute ago, we're gonna label people now, because we need to get labels on people. How long we fought to not have labels on people, and now we're gonna go back, and
this country we're regressing instead of progressing.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, I did not want it to go this way, but it did anyway. I think we should speak up on this stuff. Seriously. I don't have to agree with you, but I still will fight for your right to say whatever you want to say. And that's what it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, if you want to bring it back to comedy, I don't swear in my show. I don't have a problem with people that do swear in their show. Like I said, I think Dave Chappelle is the best comedian working today, and he swears plenty. There are plenty of guys that I travel with, I've done shows with, who are dirty as could be, and I find them funny. It's just not the route I take. So we can clearly have differing views. We can have different approaches to whatever our task is, whether it's comedy or work or whatnot. But at the end of the day, we got to get along. If we aren't united, we have nothing. We have nothing, Kyle.
Exactly. If you had to agree with me in order for me to give you so-called free speech, that's not free speech. And
right.
I don't understand why I need to draw a line with my neighbor just because he has a different political flag in his front yard. Can't we still have a barbecue and not agree on politics? Do we even have to talk about the politics?
Sure. And Kyle, so you made me think of something that's talking about the neighbors. So in Illinois, it's since been dropped, but in the prime COVID time, see, we weren't even allowed to have people visit our house. And so they were encouraging neighbors to call the police on other neighbors that have had people over. And so I actually did a little op-ed in the newspaper here. And I just said, hey, if you get the feeling that you need to call the police on your neighbor, just pause, take a drink of milk, because it's good for your teeth. You know what else is good for your teeth? Minding your own business.
Amen to that. I honestly, I think we need to start having respect for each other again. And but as well as I do, and I'm talking about both sides of the political fence, politicians, they need this controversy in order to get to bring in their audience or their constituents. And that's we're being used. I'm sorry, we are being used, and I wish people would stop falling for it. Let's go back to making fun of each other, because you know how I knew the guys that I worked with liked me? They would make fun of me. If they didn't talk to me, then I knew they didn't like me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a ball busting, we call it back in the day.
Exactly.
But now, yeah, ball busting, they get you in a little bit of trouble. They say, oh, you can't say that at work. You know, I got a cousin of mine. She single girl, early 20s, told me the story. She works, I won't say where, prominent coffee shop. All right. They make the bucks, Kyle. They make some
I
bucks.
have no idea what you're talking about.
So there's a guy comes in, works on this construction crew that's working on a project down the road, asks for her phone number. She's thrilled, gives him the phone number. So then later, a couple of other girls are working there. They're like, what was that guy talking to you about? And she's like, oh, he asked me for a phone number. And you know what they say? Do you want to file a report?
Seriously.
Like,
do you want to file? Oh my God.
And then that's me. I'm so happy I'm married now, because I have no idea how you would actually even how do you meet someone if you can't even ask for a phone number anymore without that being a weird thing. I mean, it used to be you'd ask a girl for a phone number and she'd say, no, thanks, not interested. That was the end of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And believe me, I heard a lot of that, I knew all about social distancing before COVID, because that's how the girls treated me in high school.
Yeah, I've been doing that since before I graduated.
But yeah, now, I mean, you can't even, apparently you're not supposed to ask a young lady for a phone number anymore. So
that is sad.
Every time I've tried it, now my wife gets mad at me. Why you ask that girl for a phone number?
That could be detrimental to your health. I'm with you. I'm glad I'm married. I don't know how anybody can handle the dating scene right now. And a lot of the younger generation they're more lonely because they don't know how to ask people out, or if they even should. That's another sad thing. I mean, geez, can't you just say, hey, I'm not interested or whatever? But do we have to yell the R word? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. It's a crazy time, man. It is a crazy time. But hey, if you're the type of person that doesn't want to leave your house, check out my special on Amazon.
Okay, so you have a special on Amazon? No, I'm kidding. The name of the special, and you have a website too, don't you?
Yes, you can go to jeremynunes.com, Nunes. And there's links to all that stuff on there. But yeah, so you got the Amazon Prime special, the Dry Bar special. We talked about my TikTok, comedian Jeremy Nunes. And then what you can really help me out with, the book right there, You Can't Write City Hall, which is the hilarious retelling of my real life experience as a small town mayor, hit #1 on the Amazon political humor charts. So yeah, absolutely take a look at that. You'll think it's fantastic. I've had tons of people say, I'm not even much of a reader, but I got it just to support you. And it's the funniest thing I've ever come across.
And the link, I'm assuming the link to the book is also on your website.
It is. It's available online at numerous shops, among them Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart, lots and lots.
Okay, because I'm going to put those links in the description of this show. That way people can check you out and social media.
Yeah, all that stuff. So Facebook, I'm at Front Porch Comedy, Instagram at Front Porch Comedy, and then TikTok was at Front Porch Comedy till they deleted the account. So now it's at comedian Jeremy Nunes, and then Twitter is at Jeremy Nunes. So yeah, if you're watching the video, they're all behind me right there.
Okay, now I'm going to put up these links so everybody can follow you and hopefully go out and buy your book and make this guy $1 and refresh his Amazon special a few times.
Yeah,
Put
I
on
got a lot.
autoplay.
Yeah, I got a lot of misters to support.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Jeremy. I really do, and hopefully we can collaborate again in the future. I wish you all the best, man. I look forward to more successes.
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. Would love to chat again. And again, yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks everybody for watching and putting up with me. We'll see you next time.
And if you are new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Please subscribe. All you regulars, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. And until the next one, please, everyone, take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network